Are you a movie buff? Do you love dissecting and analyzing your favorite films? Look no further than the Projection Booth podcast. Join host Mike White and a bevy of guest experts as they explore the history, themes, and legacy of cult classics, obscure gems, and mainstream hits. Join us every week for a unique and engaging look at your favorite movies. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and tune in to the Projection Booth podcast, available on all major podcast platforms.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Hello there, I'm Casualty Chris.
And this is Father Malone.
And we are the hosts of Chronicles from the Crypt, a twice-a-month look at the cult horror anthology series, Tales from the Crypt, that originally aired on HBO from 1989 to 1996.
And that series was based on the 1950s EC comics. In each of our podcasts, we're going to be taking on 2 episodes of the show, and along the way, we're going to have a few bonus podcasts covering movies and other Tales-related TV shows, some tangentially related material that bears a striking resemblance to Tales.
And we are joined on this podcast by a good friend of ours, the host of the Projection Booth podcast, Mr. Mike White.
I am so ready to hang and bang with you guys.
That's I'm never going to be able to live that one down, am I? So, Mike, before we talk about the episodes, curious, have you ever seen Tales from the Crypt before?
I think I saw a few episodes when it was on. I know for sure that I saw the movies, Demon Knight, and the other one, Bordello of Blood, on VHS a long time ago. And then, of course, the 1970s movie, but that's about it.
So you're coming to this fresh. So this is exciting. I'm excited to kind of get someone who's not a Tales fan from the get-go, kind of your thoughts. So we'll play the Crypt Keeper intro, and we'll talk about cutting cards after.
You know, kiddies, after a night of slithering through the sickening slime of my crawly crypt, I take a tip from the Marquis de Sade. He likes to unwind with a little red-hot poker. Tonight's tale from my collection of terror tomes is about a couple of real sharpies who'll do anything for a stab at the jackpot. So, ante up, fellas. The game's about to begin.
Cutting Cards aired April 21st, 1990. It's directed by and written by Mr. Walter Hill. It stars Lance Henriksen and Kevin Feige. And the synopsis for the episode is Lance Henriksen and Kevin Feige play 2 hardcore gamblers who don't play for fun and challenge each other to the end on who is the better gambler. So I'm going to start with you, Mike White. What did you think of Cutting Cards?
I wasn't a big fan. I liked some of the ideas behind it. I liked the Russian roulette part of it, and I love Lance Henriksen, and I love Kevin Feige, but it didn't really go anywhere for me, and it didn't get as vicious as I was kind of hoping that it would.
What about you, Father Malone? What is your counterpoint to Mike's take on the episode?
I love this episode. I think it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to be. I mean, I do agree that by the end, I was hoping we would get a little bit more gruesomeness. I think the gruesomeness on display is pretty phenomenal, though. I couldn't agree more. The Russian roulette scene is just about as good as anything that's ever appeared on any episode of Tales from the Crypt. Let me point out one more thing quickly, though. This episode is actually co-written. Walter Hill and a woman named Mae Woods, who was Walter Hill's producer for basically the mid 80s up until around 91. Just want to give credit where credit is due. Yeah, Kevin Teague is always fantastic. Everything he's in, and if the episode gives me pause at all, it's that it comes kind of close to Roald Dahl's story "Man from the South," which was written before the original comic was even written. It bears kind of a striking resemblance to it, though not as egregiously ripped off as it was in 4 Rooms by Quentin Tarantino. What did you think, Chris?
So I'm with you, both of you, obviously. I wish that it was a little bit more over the top in a way that kind of more suits Tales from the Crypt and the Tales from the Crypt brand and kind of what I expect from it, because we have had these thriller episodes that do kind of pile on the gore. Obviously, not really yet, but later in the show's run. But I mean, it's a great episode. Kevin Teague and Lance Henriksen are great leads. I mean, the entire episode is just the two of them back and forth, which I love. I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Lance Henriksen. He is a fantastic actor, and we have an interview with him talking about this episode that we'll play in between the Crypt Keeper intro and us wrapping up this episode. So you'll get to hear him talk about it, but it's clear to me that the people involved in this episode got it. They really got what was necessary to make this episode succeed, which some of the episodes we've seen, it doesn't seem like the people who are in it really kind of get what's necessary to make the episode succeed. And Lance Henriksen and Kevin Teague just get it. They completely get it. They buy in. Teague plays the Weasley gambler, and Henriksen plays the really boastful, kind of proud, hubris-filled gambler. And I love it. They're great. They're perfect. They play off of one another perfectly. But the ending does leave something to be desired, because it just kind of cuts to the ending so quickly that I'm almost like, did we miss something? Was there like a couple minutes that they cut out for pacing? And that is what happened, clearly. It's just, it's unfortunate that the gore and the over-the-top violence suffered.
Well, the original story of it, I mean, it follows it pretty darn closely. I mean, we don't get the guy who shows up in the car at one point to kind of interrupt their game, but otherwise, I mean, it follows it pretty darn close, and there really is no, them going throughout the night playing their game, but you don't really see anything more, and then kind of cut to the next panel, and they're the Stumps playing checkers in the hospital. I don't know how they would have cut off that last arm, but I guess if you're determined, you're going to be able to figure out a way.
That's what the spectators were for by the end there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just want to point out quickly that this is the second episode that is actually based on a Tales from the Crypt comic. This was Tales from the Crypt number 32, written by Al Feldstein, who wrote the lion's share of the original comics, and it was actually drawn by a guy named Fred Peters. And as you said, it follows the comic almost exclusively. I think what we've discovered is that they tend to follow the comics too closely on occasion. This one, I don't think, suffered all that much from it. I think a slathering of Walter Hill's sort of tough guy dialogue goes a long way to paper over any cracks that is usually found in the comic books. I don't think anyone does that sort of machismo posturing better than Walter Hill, at least up until this point. I don't know.
I'm curious, how many episodes of Tales from the Crypt is Roy Brocksmith in? Because it was nice to see him show up, because just to pull back the curtain a little bit, I was supposed to be on the last episode, and he showed up as a crazy doctor in that one, so he shows up as a bartender in this, and I was like, oh, cool, more Roy Brocksmith. I can never get enough of this guy.
I believe we're at, 4 now, and twice at least as a bartender?
No, I think this is the third. He was in Man Who Was Death, The Switch, and now this one. And yes, he was a bartender twice, both in Walter Hill episodes.
Right, so he's been the bartender 2 times now. So it's and that was kind of something when I really want to pull back the curtain. When I had initially started this Chronicles from the Crypt podcast 3 years ago, before we re-upped it and kind of redid it, that was one of the things I had talked about, was the idea that Roy Brocksmith shows up so many times early on. And it's obviously because of Walter Hill, but Roy Brocksmith is so great every time he's on screen. And he plays a pretty small part, but he's, essentially in my mind, he's third billed in the episode, because it's Kevin Teague and Lance Henriksen, and Roy Brocksmith is the one who kind of sets them up together.
The thing that you mentioned that isn't in the comic is the scene where this guy pulls up in a car. That's one of my favorite moments in the entire thing, where these two guys who are at each other's throat from the get-go, sort of come together, just to tell this guy to go fuck himself. That's as I said, one of my favorite moments. That I really liked that one. And the guy driving the car, I'm a failing here because I don't actually know his name, but I know he is actually a stunt driver. You'll see him in tons and tons of movies, always driving a car. The movie that he sticks out in my mind was Oliver Stone's movie The Doors. At one point, Jim Morrison lights up a joint on stage, and he walks out as a cop and pulls it out of his mouth and says, "I don't want to see any more of that shit." We should note how many times that guy shows up. I imagine it's equal to, if not more than, Roy Brocksmith.
I'm really glad you brought up the Roald Dahl story, because it was funny when I was talking with Chris yesterday via IM. I was like, well, this is okay, but it really does not match the tension of Man from the South. And then I'm sending him links to go check out this video kind of thing, because that is one of my favorite things. And just to see, who was it, Steve McQueen, and was it Peter Lorre in that, right? And
in the original one, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and and then they redid it on Alfred Hitchcock Presents again, probably just a few years before this, with John Huston as one of the guys. So, and then the ripoff in The Man from Hollywood and 4 Rooms. But even in that, I felt more tension than there was in this, and they made it so much more gruesome, the whole idea of removing the finger, whereas in this, it almost happens too quickly. It's like, oh, okay, wow. And then just the chops just keep coming really fast. And so, yeah, I kind of wish that they had spent more time on that kind of torture porn type aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think, though, the Russian roulette sequence, I think beats almost all of those as far as tension. I think it was masterfully done in this particular episode. So I think maybe the thinking was that they'd already done that portion. We know these guys' fingers are going to be coming off. I mean, this is a Tales from the Crypt comics, so we want to get to the gore at this point. However, you're right; it needed a lot more of it. I wanted to see some limbs coming off of these guys.
Well, and again, we've talked a little bit about following the source material very closely, and I have no problem with it following the source material very closely, but when Walter Hill did The Man Who Was Death, it followed it closely, but it also did a little couple different things with it in a way that made it kind of different and exciting and unique. And that's kind of maybe what I was hoping for. I mean, again, this is a great episode. It's one of the better episodes of the show. It's definitely in the top 10 episodes of the show based off of the performances alone. But it gets going so quickly, and then it cuts off so fast, no pun intended, that for me, it just leaves a little to be desired in the way of kind of like we've been talking about the gore and kind of the over-the-top nature of what this show knows that it is.
Yeah, and again, we should point out that nobody sort of got the tone of this show better than Walter Hill. And kind of interesting because he was never a horror director at all. It was more an action guy. But as far as the thriller, non-supernatural episodes of the show, he reigned supreme.
I mean, he wrote our favorite episode of the show.
Easily.
Yeah. Which is Man Who Was Death, which if you haven't seen that episode and listened to us talk about that episode, that is, again, it's a standout. And this episode is very close in quality. It's, and like you mentioned, Father Malone, it's, the dialogue does a good job of making sure that any of the inherent problems aren't as visible. So
ultimately, I'm going to say this is an episode to watch. Again, not the heights of Man Who Was Death, but pretty darn close. I'm not dissatisfied with the episode in any way. I do wish they had pushed the gore more, but you know what? I'll take what I can get. And the gore we're given is pretty cringe-inducing.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. If you're not into disembowelments and people's fingers being cut off, this episode is not for you at all. If that grosses you out, do not watch this episode.
I think if that's the case, don't watch this series.
So, Mike, would you skip it or watch it?
I would watch this many, many times, and I have. It's definitely worthy. It might be my favorite episode this season. I don't know. No, that's not true. We have one coming up near the end, Television Terror, which I think is probably superior to this one. But this one ranks really high in my book. You would be not without the realm of possibility to offer this up as a first episode of Tales from the Crypt to somebody.
So, like I mentioned before, I had an interview with Lance Henriksen. We'll play that interview, and then when we get back, we'll let the Crypt Keeper introduce Till Death. So you were on 2 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, Yellow and Cutting Cards.
Right.
What was it like to be on Tales from the Crypt? Because obviously you were on Tales from the Crypt early on in this show.
Right. Well, the attitude of Tales from the Crypt was we're all getting the same money and we all have equal status in this thing, so let's have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's really have fun. I mean, Zemeckis, that's the first thing he said to me when I walked on the set. He said, Lance, let's have fun with this. I'm playing World War I. Kirk Douglas was in it, and I'm carrying a shotgun around, and I'm actually doing his role in Paths of Glory.
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible to do that because I love that movie, Paths of Glory. But anyway, and it has a like a almost dark comedy feel to it, even though it's heavy subject. I end up wanting to kill this kid who's a yellow dog, and he got a lot of my men killed. I play a Sergeant Ripper, and I'm running through the trenches trying to get people to fight, to keep charging. And everybody around me is getting shot and killed, and I'm still trying to lead the charge. And then we end up having to restring a communications wire out across the, no man's land, and this kid, who was actually Kirk Douglas' son.
Yeah.
He does something that really makes a lot of my men get killed, and I want to kill him.
Right.
I got my guts in my helmet. I mean, I've been ripped open myself. So.
Yeah.
But Zemeckis had a terrific way of working. I mean, that was a big looking show, man.
Yep.
The explosions and everything. It's just everything about it. And Kirk Douglas, God, man, he was so good. He was a guy when I was a little kid, going to movies. He was like a big movie star, and going upriver and, on a barge and with flintlock rifles and stuff like that. And then now here I'm standing there working with him. that's mind-boggling. It was really cool. And then working with Walter Hill, I've done a lot of different things with Walter, and I really love the guy. He's a man's man and doing westerns and all kinds of stuff. We did Johnny Handsome down in New Orleans together, but Cutting Cards was a comedy. It really was.
Yeah.
It was so fun to do. It was playing. I wanted to play in that. One of those kind of casino roaches,
Right.
I asked to have my wardrobe made so that I looked very skinny in it, so it was a guy who was never physical, he was just up all night playing cards and dissipating, and, and I grew that stupid little mustache because I wanted to look, he just not self-aware, he was living a cliche,
Right.
Belt buckle, black scuff, red piping, it was funny as hell. And Kevin Ty and I had this real contempt for each other, put downs, and then it got more and more dangerous. But it was so much fun to shoot. Oh man, we shot into the night talking about. Method, it was all method.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually spoke to William Sadler about his first episode, and he impressed upon me that it was very much guerrilla filmmaking. The episodes that you were in, if that was kind of the case, or if it had kind of
No, and neither one was it like that. No, those were epic. It wasn't guerrilla filmmaking. They had everything they needed, everything they wanted.
Right.
Sets and just everything. We had it all. You know?
You were far enough along in the show that it was kind of a thing at that point.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I love doing those.
Was there anything particularly memorable about, any interesting stories about either of your times on the show?
Oh, shooting the whole thing. I mean, oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I remember I wanted to smoke Lucky Strikes because I thought this guy, he liked the package.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to smoke in every scene. And, we had a scene where we were playing Russian roulette. And because of the amount of takes that we did, I actually poisoned myself with nicotine because I'd probably gone through 2 packs just doing that one scene, because I wanted to have the cigarette at the right length and all that crap.
Right.
So. But anyway, I remember getting sick as a dog from smoking, like tobacco poisoning or some shit.
Oh, God.
And then, having to scream at the other guy. And it was cool. I mean, it was like I was drunk on hatred. It was good. It gave me something. I'll have to remember that. To smoke 3 packs in a day. I know. But anyway, it was everything about it was cool. I mean, we were really, you felt at the time like it wasn't television. It was making movies. It was a movie. It was not television.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like. Because I've been on film set down in New Orleans with Walter, and he's one of the great guys to work for, And I remember this wasn't television. I mean, it was amazing. Both with Zemeckis and him. Those guys have a level of kind of quality that kind of make happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was kind of transitions into my next question. What is it like, working in the TV industry in the 90s versus now? I mean, what's kind of the difference? Obviously, since you're on Blacklist now, kind of what's the difference?
I'm not going to be on it very long.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there's an end in sight. I mean, I think doing a series, I think the hardest thing is you feel a bit indentured, that you don't know when the end is going to be there. The money is always good, for some. But the problem is it could run 10 years.
Right.
And to keep your energy level at that peak, because you have to do good work, it can't be sloppy because it's long, But the feeling is, oh my God, this is my life now, and I don't know when this particular lifestyle is going to end. The lifestyle of the character and your life, because it could be anywhere in the world. They could summon you to, oh God, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you're indentured. You're indentured to the whole thing. And I never liked that feeling, because when I'm making a film, I want to have a lot of energy for it, and at least where the end is in sight. You know how long the shoot's going to be, and the end's in sight, and so you could kind of gauge yourself, keep your energy up, and all that kind of thing, because you need it when you're doing good work. But when I did Millennium, I remember so distinctly that we worked long hours into the night and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't know how long this was going to go on. We did 23 shows in a year. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the 3 years, and suddenly you go, is this my life now? Wow, I'm going to burn out.
Right. I can imagine.
Sure. It's a big responsibility, because you got to do the best job you can. But that's the difference. What I'm trying to compare it to is the difference between film, television. That's the one major difference. You don't know. There's no end in sight. And we all like that. We celebrate Christmas and Turkey Day and everything we can think of in order to give ourselves a kind of mark, so we know where we are in this imaginary year.
Right.
Yeah, signpost.
Yeah.
I'm almost in town, or I've left town.
Right.
Yeah, buddy. I mean, this is not a very glorifying conversation about television, is it?
Well, I mean, I can see both. I mean, I can see both sides of kind of the, two heads of the same coin. I mean, some people like that stability, and then
for a while they do.
Yeah. I can also imagine the feeling of, do I have enough energy to do this for 10 seasons or whatever
Well, you know what? It's a big mistake to look down the road like that.
Uh-huh.
You just got to kind of take it one day at a time. I mean, when you think of it in that way, it'd be like saying, well, I'm going to go to Mars. I'm already booked to go. Well, that's 18 months. You know, You better just live one day at a time in space. Or you ain't going to make it. You'll go insane.
So did that kind of affect, the reason that you got involved with Tales from the Crypt is because it's more of a anthology, Twilight Zone-esque way of doing TV?
Well, yeah. I mean, I work a lot, and I think the reason I do is I know what my limits are and how much kind of work I can do and stay healthy, wealthy, and wise and happy, you know, as opposed to, although I get caught sometimes. Sometimes movies can be very difficult, but most of the time I'm really happy. I mean, I really love doing it. And I know just about how to pace myself in any situation now after all these years, you know, working. I'm cool. Yeah, I love it.
Huh. Of your two roles in Tales from the Crypt, kind of which one was more memorable for you?
I think the one, you know, Yellow was. Because privately it was. It's like I was really happy to be in it. I really was. You know, I mean, I got to play soldiers with real blanks. Real shotgun. It was fun, like World War One. I mean, I know that's not supposed to be, but it truly was, because they created the trenches, everything else, and you know, and we're in a war footing right now. The whole world, what a crazy place we're living in right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they just on every level. It's just like, will they ever stop? Will governments ever stop trying to kill each other just to keep them stay in power? Just insane.
I think the answer to that one is probably no. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately for everyone involved.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Like we're born, women work so hard to give birth. I mean, to create a baby, and the best we can do is like shoot it. I mean, Jesus, man.
Right.
What a stupid world. On that level. I mean, but anyway, yeah, Yellow.
Yeah.
I loved Yellow too because I mean I was really excited about working with Zemeckis just to see what the difference is between the way he works and the way Walter works, and it was cool. I mean, I just it's something you feel. It's not. I couldn't really describe it, but I like them both.
And I mean, Robert Zemeckis has obviously made some of the the biggest movies in Hollywood as well. So I can imagine working with him is kind of a an honor, I guess, or it's a real privilege to work with someone like Robert Zemeckis. So well,
it's mostly you get to. I mean, it is all of that, but it's also you see the skill of his taste. In making decisions, he's got great skill. You know what I mean? He's very well versed, and it's kind of a pleasure to watch a guy who doesn't have any doubts about what he's doing.
Right.
I mean, those are the people I'm attracted to work with, because then something happens. Something is good on.
Yeah.
It's not just reciting anything. It's living it to some degree.
When you were working on Tales from the Crypt, did you kind of get the sense that it was going to be kind of it's still relevant today. I mean, it's still pretty popular in regards to like an anthology TV show. It still holds up pretty well. Did you kind of get the sense that it was going to become kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I did, because I saw the work we had done. But the only thing I didn't like too much is the little prick at the beginning of the show. The little comic skeleton. I mean, that didn't do it for me. I've never liked, I've never really liked puppets and shit. I mean,
right.
Even as a kid, I didn't like them. I mean, it's like a mime. Puts you off because he's got a white face and yellow teeth. Because you go, oh shit. But that part I didn't care much for. I mean, that's almost like something out of a comic book that didn't really work for me. It's like an animated puppet.
Right.
I don't like puppets that much. I never even liked Sesame Street as a kid.
Oof.
There's something about ventriloquism, puppets, mimes, that kind of. I mean, we got real people. I want to talk to somebody real.
Right.
Somebody that breathes,
So there's not going to be a Lance Henriksen camo in a Muppet movie, is what you're saying?
No, there's not. No. I mean, I conceivably could do a movie about shadow puppets, because you're one step away from it, and you're creating something that's an illusion, like a magician. I mean, magicians can be great, man. I have some friends that actually work up the Magic Castle once in a while, and a guy named Cunningham, and he's just a brilliant musician. But I mean, in the sense of, we were in Australia together, and we would go into a bar, and after half an hour, he would have the place in an uproar with his tricks. I mean, stuff you can do right there with people, not, need to be on stage with tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I like, because it's connection. But, and also shadow puppets, in Thailand and stuff, they tell stories, and it's like television in its simplest form, where they're telling you stories that are have an effect on your life. You got kings, queens, princesses, you got soldiers, you got murder, you got all that stuff. The same thing as television. Yet it's done with smoke and mirrors, like a magic show. Just a shadow and music. It's incredible music. But I like that. But I don't like that little shrunken head.
Not a fan of the Crypt Keeper.
He's not funny. He pisses me off, actually.
Oh.
Like comic books can do,
Right.
Piss me off.
I got you.
I actually wrote a comic. Joe Madre and I wrote a comic together called Telluride, which is phonetic for Telluride, Colorado. But it's a 5-comic series now for Dark Horse. So anyway, yeah, that was different. Our comic was different anyway.
Right.
There were no Crypt Keepers.
there were no cackling, laughing, desiccated puppets.
Yeah. God, if that was my neighbor, I'd move.
You're actually the first person I've ever heard that's not a fan of the Crypt Keeper. And I can understand why. If you're not a fan of puppets, the Crypt Keeper's kind of the last thing you'd want to have anything to do with.
I like shadow puppets. I don't like puppets.
In kind of your pantheon of roles, and of that there are many.
You're going to ask me that question. I know you're going to ask me.
Which question?
What was my favorite role?
I was going to say, how does Tales from the Crypt kind of rank in those?
Oh, I see. Oh, good. Thank you for not asking me.
No, that question is too easy. That question is too easy, and I'm sure it's been asked a million times.
Oh, it has, but and it's impossible to answer.
Right.
I get lockjaw when somebody asks me that one.
Right.
Because I've done a couple of hundred movies, so it's like, oh, shit.
Right.
That's my answer. My answer finally, when I figured out a good one, to just let each other off the hook, which is the last one. Always the last one I did is my favorite.
Right.
But anyway, what does it rank? Well, in our memories, if I sat and watched it now, it would be like visiting a part of my life, because I really felt at home with Walter Hill, and I felt at home with Zemeckis. I really did. It was like I belong there. I belong working with these guys. And it's not me saying I'm as good as they are. I just love that world. I love it. I love a world where people really know what they want and they know what they're doing. And suddenly you have a minor miracle happen. The shows were tight and strong and very, very well done. They really were. And always with some humor. I love humor. I really do. I don't think I'm funny. I just think situations are very funny in a film.
Right.
1 minute I'm charging through the trenches and I say, have you seen so-and-so? And the guy points and his arm gets shot off. That's comedy. That's like slapstick.
Right.
The timing is like slapstick. And, to go through the trouble to do all of that. You literally see the guys, it was practical effects, and the guy's arm went off. It was like, and I went, damn. And I ran to the next guy, and he gets shot. And it's like, what the hell? Pretty funny, man. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's very much black comedy, Tales from the Crypt.
Very.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which I think is why it's kind of been so successful in the long run.
That it's lasted, yeah.
Yeah. Because, all the episodes hold up on their own, and,
They do.
Yeah.
They really do, yeah.
Yeah. And I think...
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think you're actually in the longest episode of the show. The Yellow, I think, is the only full-length episode. Almost feature-length. It's almost an hour long.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a set, the whole thing. Everything about it. We were in the trenches in France and the deep shit. There was something bad going on.
Right.
This guy had to kill his own kid. It was Anyway.
It's a pretty dark episode of the show compared to some of the other ones. The subject matter is a little darker.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God.
I mean, even compared to your other episode, really.
Yeah, drama. It's drama. Kirk Douglas on it. And they went through a great deal of effort because he was in it. You know.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can't imagine the first episode of the show they were thinking that they would have, Kirk Douglas on the show a couple seasons later. That wasn't the feeling that I got, in the other interviews I've conducted.
Nobody would expect anything that Crypt Keeper was doing that would bring any quality. The little cracking little jokes.
But it became kind of a thing later in the show because there was, Arnold Schwarzenegger directed one, and then there's these really like Kirk Douglas and yourself. I mean, these big name talents were coming out to, be in the show. So
sure. Yeah. I mean, we all had the same feeling, like let's have fun with this because we're sure not making any money, on it. So let's do it and have fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was very happy to be part of that. Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
You know the ironic twist to all of that? Back when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was reading Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Those comics, they were gory, man. They were drawn amazingly well. They were good stories, they were creepy-ass stories. And I remember I had a stack of those. I mean, I loved those comics. I'd run to get every new one that came out. They were only 10 cents, I mean. And then McCarthy came along and said, you're destroying our kids with these Tales from the Crypt comics,
Right.
And parents went out and burned them. They threw the comics away. They literally ripped them out of our hands and threw them away. They're doing the same thing with video games. Anything the children like.
Yeah.
Adults want to fuck it up. Excuse my French, but, video games now, I mean, they don't know what to do with kids, and they're stuck with them. And so they just keep meddling, like the government does.
Yeah.
It's almost like the government doesn't like us at all. The fact that I think that what would probably solve it is if we all were the president. All of us,
Welcome to my cozy crypt. Have I got a story for you? A tacky tropical tale of love and lust, greed and ghouls, and my personal favorite, death. But I'm warning you, it's not a pretty picture. So, pack up your passports and prepare for this torrid tale of putrefaction in paradise. I'm sure you'll find it appealing.
Till Death aired April 24th, 1990. It is directed by Chris Wallace and written by Jerry Barchelon. It stars D.W. Moffett, Pamela Geen, and Aubrey Morris. The synopsis of the episode is D.W. Moffett is a landowner in the Caribbean who tries to woo a rich younger woman using a voodoo love potion. And it goes completely wrong. So, with your opinion on cutting cards not being very high, Mike, what did you think of the Switch? Or, goddammit, the Switch. It's what it says on the thing that I put, and I forgot to change it. I'm an idiot. Jesus Christ. I need to use my brain. So, Mike White, what did you think of Till Death?
Also not a big fan. I felt like this one was really poorly paced. I kind of wish there was more at the beginning to lead up to stuff. They kind of really brush by the whole idea of the native woman and D.W. Moffat's character having been an item at one point and him needing this money and his building thing, whatever he's trying to do is on quicksand, yada, yada, yada. They get to the voodoo real quick and then it just really gets repetitive with this whole idea of the woman coming back from the dead and getting worse and worse very, very quickly. It's not even as well paced as Griffin Dunn coming back in American Werewolf in London. So I was like, okay, I want more of the setup and less at the end. And then I didn't understand why Mr. Deltoid came back as the disembodied head at the end. I was like, what is happening here?
What about you, Father Malone?
Yeah, this was not a favorite episode. I remembered it pretty vividly, but only because Chris Walas, the director, he is a special effects man. A special effects man primarily, and so I remember the final incarnation of the bride, where it's basically just like a walking corpse, being pretty spectacular, and that came through again for me. Jesus. But overall, not the best episode. I totally agree. This is one where, again, if you go back and reread the comic, this was a Vault of Horror number 28, written and drawn by a guy named Johnny Craig, who's actually a really good artist. They could have done themselves a great service and strayed as far away from the original plot as possible. Like the idea of this woman coming back to life and haunting this man who had used her is like I think a viable one, and I think it could have been really good. But there's just the plot is too busy. I don't care that we're in Haiti. I don't care that he's trying to get this building made and there's quicksand involved, and it's just like all busy work to get to what is the thrust of it, that that love never dies. And but having said that, the effects are pretty spectacular. Although, as Mike said, she kind of she falls apart real quickly, and I wouldn't even care about that, except they very specifically say that she's already been embalmed, which means she shouldn't be falling apart at all. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, I think it suffers from a similar issue with cutting cards. We've seen episodes of this show where the pacing really shines and the pacing really works. I mean, you've got an episode like The Man Who Was Death that's very streamlined. It's very to the point. It's very lean. And then you have an episode like Cutting Cards where it's almost too streamlined in some respects, and it feels like it's maybe missing just a couple minutes, a minute or two of something. And then Till Death really suffers from that, which is unfortunate because the idea is fun, the effects are fun, and some of the performances aren't bad. You've got D.W. Moffett hamming it up as this kind of asshole character, which, again, this is the supernatural episode of the pair of episodes we're talking about. So it's a fun episode in that it really kind of has that supernatural aspect that up until this point this season we haven't seen. We're 4 episodes in, we haven't seen any supernatural. I mean, the show is introduced by a goddamn talking corpse, and this is the first episode in 4 episodes where we have a supernatural element, which is a bummer because the supernatural element is really where the show kind of shines in some respects. I mean, the thriller episodes are nothing to scoff at, but when you have the interplay of the two, it allows them to do some really interesting stuff. But I think ultimately, like you guys have been talking about, it really suffers from a pacing problem early on. Because it feels like it ramps up way too quickly, and it kind of just ignores some of the rules it lays down for itself. Kind of as soon as they lay down the rules, they immediately ignore them.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched American Gods last year, but it kind of reminded me of that as far as the wife coming back and her slow decay and the whole idea of the flies and stuff. I kind of would have liked, to Father Malone's point, a little bit more of her coming back and being this fresh corpse. And, then, like, we discover that she's dead, but we discover pretty quickly that she's dead. And it's like, oh, okay. And, yeah, she just gets real torn up real fast. It should have been more like, Death Becomes Her, where there's the slow degrade of the corpse. Then you realize, like, oh, if something bad happens to her, that it won't heal, or, they have to use, like, staples or something to keep her together, and it just gets worse and worse. There could have been some real morbid humor inside of this, but, yeah, instead. And I like her as a character. I think, like, her whole thing of being way too good for Haiti and just, hating everything about this island. But I kind of would have liked it if he had been more in love with the island. Instead, he's more in love with money. And so he just sees her as dollar signs, and her whole thing of like putting down the natives doesn't really affect him at all. Whereas, if there was this love affair that he had with this native woman, he should have been more in love with, things in general. But yeah, he's just a dick from start to finish, and he just gets to be really more of a dick, and she's kind of a bitch, and she's a bitch from start to finish. So nobody changes. There's no real arc in here.
Yeah, and the other thing is now watching it. This is an episode from 28 years ago, but it does not excuse how incredibly racist the entire thing feels with the natives, and it's like every time we go to Chinatown there has to be somebody doing mysticism and karate. Like every time we go to Haiti, of course we're going to have the voodoo rituals going on, and it's just I don't know. I felt queasy watching it. I'm sure I felt queasy watching it the first time, but now 28 years removed, it feels like, how muddle-headed was this? And do we even need this sort of voodoo practice? Because, as you said, Mike, it doesn't play into it at all. It just so happens to be that when they wrote this comic book, that's where you would go to get a zombie. Do we need that now? No, probably not. They could have set this in Manhattan, for God's sake.
Yeah, and the whole idea too of, at one point it seems like she's speaking with the black woman's voice and oh, you left me and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, that doesn't fit with this either. This is really strange.
I completely agree though, because this whole idea that Haiti is the land of zombies and love potion. In 2018 it's played out. In 1990, it couldn't have been any less played out. Maybe it was a little less played out, but it is, again, I don't want to defend the source material, but they are working within the source material, and they probably could have changed it a little bit. It reminds me a lot of the episode Halfway Horrible, where, and this is way later on, and Father Malone will know what I'm talking about, Pulling Back the Curtain. And it reminds me of just, weird colored people mysticism. It's like, Jesus Christ, show. Even though this is a pulp comic, it is a horror pulp comic, it hasn't aged well in some respects. And this is one of the respects that it just has not aged well. And, that's unfortunate, but again, at the same time, it's like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That movie hasn't really aged well either. But again, considering the source material, it is drawing directly from the vein of kind of, stereotyping. So
yeah, but that speaks to what I think we've talked about a lot in these episodes. Yeah, especially now that we're in the second season, it does feel like that it's a missed opportunity that they didn't give these comics to these writers, or these writers chose the comics and said, okay, well, I'm using this and I'm just jumping off from here and I can go wherever I want. These were comics for children in the 1950s. There's no need to be slavish to the original source, and this one feels particularly egregious when it comes to that. Just go wherever you want. There's no one stopping any of these writers or directors from doing whatever the hell they wanted here. And even by 1990, sort of voodoo was kind of a lazy shorthand to introduce the supernatural, to get a MacGuffin going. We've been watching Twilight Zone. Sometimes you don't even need to explain the thing; just go with it. So, that's unfortunate while rewatching this particular one.
Well, and we talked about cutting cards playing too closely to the source material, and that's the thing about this show. It was being written in a time where, I don't know. Again, I don't want to give the show an excuse, but if this show were made now in 2018, they would use the source material as a inspiration, not as a outline. And I think that's kind of a, looking at the show then, show now, the way shows are done then, the way the shows are done now. And I think that's kind of it's just a product of the time, unfortunately, in a way, and that, again, is another part of the show that hasn't aged well, is it being kind of a product of the late 80s, early 90s.
Though I was surprised at just how far they did stray from the original source material. The source material is, what, Father Malone, 6 pages? It's a real quick story. The whole idea of the voodoo priestess and the friend who's the doctor, and, it's basically bride comes down to marry this guy, she dies, and then his manservant is like, hey, Buana, we're going to make you happy, and we've resurrected your bride, here you go. He rejects her, he ends up trying to kill himself, and then, hey, Buana, we brought you back from the dead too, so now they're both undead couple, and they are going to stay around forever. But it's real bam, 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 none of the idea of the money and the doctor and the head and all this kind of stuff. none of that is there. It's just very quick. And there's no conflict with her. She is, other than until she's dead, but at the beginning, she's there for him. Like, she's coming down the gangplank. Oh, Steve, here I am. And he's like, oh, Julie or whatever. And they get together, and when he takes her to the plantation that he's running there, there's no bitching and moaning. It's just like, oh, we're having the best time of our lives. She kisses him awake every morning, yada yada, and then she ends up just dying. So it's they weren't too slavish to this, but I think it was just a real matter of the pacing and stuff that they could have gotten away from that. And then I don't know if they had to say, like, well, this is Haiti, so there's going to be voodooism in it.
Mm-hmm. Let's put it this way. The voodooism in this is not approached in a way that is, I don't know, respectful of what it actually is versus what maybe folks think it is, if that makes sense.
Well, look, I don't even, I think you can get away with doing voodoo in this sort of dark tradition as well. It just felt like it came from the 60s, like we learned everything we know about voodoo from watching other voodoo movies, and here it is. And like I'm saying, I don't think it's necessary that they should have shown like the lighter side of voodoo as well. But there's a way you can handle it and not. I mean, right around the same time period, Wes Craven made a movie called Serpent and the Rainbow, which similarly tackled voodoo, and that was. Talk about straying from the source material. That was written by like a botanist who went down to find a particular plant that they were using to turn people into voodoo zombies. There was nothing supernatural at all in the book. It was nonfiction, and then they turned it into this spectacle of voodoo and the supernatural. But it was still done well. That one doesn't feel exploitative, whereas this one just feels like a little bit off. Like these black people, they have their secrets.
I would really have appreciated if Pop Staples was singing about Papa Legba in this, though, to be perfectly honest. I think that would have made this episode probably 10 times better. And if you get that reference, congratulations.
I thought you were hoping that Antonio Fargas would show up in this.
I hope he shows up in everything.
No, I just wanted Pop Staples to be singing a voodoo song while trying to practice an incantation for John Goodman to find a wife. Father Malone, skip it or watch it?
I'm going to say skip this one. I do think that final shot of the corpse and the tongue sort of writhing within it is really horrific, and it actually stuck in my head forever. But that one image is not worth the 22 additional minutes. I think you could actually just YouTube that moment and get the best that the episode has to offer.
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you. I think it's a skip, which is unfortunate because, again, it's just kind of it just falls kind of flat, and it's not the best paced episode either. So we'll play the interview we have with D.W. Moffett, who played Logan Andrews in the episode that we just talked about. And when we get back, we'll talk about the next 2 episodes we're watching. How did you get involved with the show?
I got a phone call from my manager at the time who said that they're doing this kind of crazy, HBO was like brand new back then. Mm-hmm. And I think this was an HBO then, right?
Yeah, this was an HBO production from the start.
Yeah. So HBO was brand new. Like it was like seriously like brand new. Mm-hmm. And she called and said, some pretty interesting people are behind this horror anthology, and they've offered you the lead in this thing. You want to read the script? And I read the script, and this is before anybody had, laptops or whatever. They messengered over a script, and I read it, and I said, yeah, it sounds good. Who's in it? And it was, I knew who Aubrey was from Clockwork Orange, mm-hmm. and I'd never heard of Pamela, but she had just had this kind of big off-Broadway hit in New York called Under the Something Tree, the Syringa Tree, I think, or something.
Yeah,
she just had this big off-Broadway hit. And so she was out in L.A. Trying to kind of see what gold she could, mine. Mm-hmm. And so, I hadn't know anything about her, but I knew who Aubrey was. And so I said, sure, and Chris Wallace, who directed it, had just won an Oscar for special effects for The Fly, which a movie that I loved. Yeah. And so I was like, wow, that guy did a great job. The special effects on the movie were awesome. So I figured, at the very least, it's going to look cool because he'll have great special effects. Mm-hmm. And at the very worst, if he's a horrible director, I can sort of take care of myself. So I said, fine, sign me up. And so I showed up at this. It was sort of a first for me in many ways. It was kind of the first time that I'd ever worked on a TV show in what I like to refer to as like the converted warehouse studio.
Gotcha.
There's a whole, it's sort of almost always now, with the exception of if you're on a CSI show or some big procedural or some big Warner Brothers show, almost all television that is now shot in buildings that weren't originally built as sound stages. They're,
Gotcha.
They're book warehouses or there's some kind of warehouse. And so I drive out to this warehouse in Culver City that is not soundproofed at all. And I walk in and it's sort of like walking into a big dark room and all the sets are built. And they were like, we got to hold for traffic sometimes, but it's been pretty good so far and we've had a good time. And all of the sets look super cool. We shot the entire thing interior except for the scene where her hand comes out of the grave, and I die in quicksand in that movie?
Well, that was a kind of question I had. So you were there's a part where you sink into quicksand, and then she pulls you out.
Yeah, that was exterior too. I think we went over to Universal Ranch or something for that, but everything else was shot literally in like an old, I don't know if it was a grocery store. I don't know what the hell it was. It was like off of like Venice in Culver City somewhere. I couldn't even find the place if I had to.
Gotcha.
I'm sure it's not even a movie thing anymore. I'm sure it's, the real estate's too expensive and they've made it into an internet cafe or something.
Right. Right.
So that's where we shot it. It was all really good. Pamela, I think there was a lot was new to Pamela. Mm-hmm. A lot was new to Pamela. Like, she's really from the theater and she's from South Africa. And so she had questions about the script and she wanted to talk about interpretation, and they're going, we got a crew standing around. We can't be having this conversation right now. Like, if you have questions, you better ask them tonight about tomorrow's work, but right now we're shooting.
Right.
And that was, so that never really got resolved, and I understand it because when I first did my first couple of things, I was from the theater myself, and I would be like, hey, wait a second, I don't know what this means. Like, we should talk about this. And people would look at me like I'm crazy.
Right.
And then there was a scene where she's like in a negligee or something.
Yeah.
And this would never happen today, but literally we did not shoot for hours while they figured out how to make her look the way she wanted to look in the negligee. And I don't know what that was, because when I finally came onto the set and she was in the negligee, it looked to me like she'd taken off her t-shirt and bra and put on a negligee.
Right.
I don't know what took 4 hours, but something took 4 hours.
Right.
And, that would never happen today. People would be shot against a wall if it took 4 hours to because an actress didn't like the way she looked in the negligee. I mean, unless it was Angie Harmon on Rizzoli and Isles, and she has that power. But, usually that doesn't happen anymore.
Right. Right. No, I got you.
Yeah. But other than that, it was a pretty, Aubrey was a strange dude. I did another movie with Aubrey recently called
The Visioneers.
Visioneers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Visioneers.
Yeah.
And Aubrey was not at all liking Zach's process. That was hilarious. Zach was like, "You're weird, man." They should have shot a rehearsal. That's what they should have shot.
Right.
But he's like one of these like eccentric old English actors who are all kind of hilarious to be around, and they take up a lot of time with their war stories, but they're always interesting. So you just kind of have to go with the flow. That's kind of what that's what you're getting.
Right.
I don't know if is he still on the planet or is he gone on?
No, he's actually 88 years old, so he's still around.
Good for him, man. Good for him. So that was kind of it. I mean, Chris, the director, was really good. He was really patient. You know, what could have been a really difficult situation with the lead actress turned out fine because he was so sweet and nice to her, and she was kind of freaked out about being in a negligee and all that crap, and that turned out good. And I got along with her just fine because, you know, at the end of the day, usually, unless you're working with someone who's deeply disturbed, actors just want to look their best. Right. And once actors realize that the other actor isn't trying to screw up their performance and is actually doing a decent job, most actors just fall into line. You know, that's been my experience. I mean, you know, in general, that you know, I've worked with incredibly, you know, reputation-wise, incredibly difficult actors, and I think once they figure out that A, I know what I'm doing, and B, I'm really there just to make them look good, because the better you look, the better I look. Mm-hmm. It's all good. So right. You know, from that standpoint, it was you know, pretty smooth sailing. You know, it was. Everyone was, you know, super. It was the beginning of kind of television production that was being done on a less expensive scale with still lofty visual goals. So there was I remember there was a lot of bitching about, you know, the pay scale was different because it was a cable show and their hours were longer. And I think people, you know, just weren't used to it. And what has now become kind of the rule. Yeah. You know, this is how television is done now. Like I said, with the exception of, you know, some very few super successful franchise shows that get to spend, you know, money like they did in the old days. But, you know, most television now is done in an almost unrecognizably economic, streamlined way than it was when that thing was done 25 years ago. Right.
So other than the lead actress kind of having her quirks, was there, and Aubrey Morris just sounding like an old English actor.
Yeah, but very, very delightful guy. Right. They were both delightful. It was just like, you know,
everybody has their quirks.
I'm sure they would say, you know, that I was sort of like, I don't know what they'd say. Maybe I was flirting with the makeup people. I don't know what they'd say about me. Who knows? You know. You know, but I don't remember any fireworks. I don't remember any weirdness. I remember Joel Silver walking on the set one time and going, "Hey, this is fucking great. This sets look great." I mean, that was kind of the only part of the power troika that I ever saw. It was Silver and Joe Dante, and who else was part of that?
It was Richard Donner, David Giler, Walter Hill, and Joel Silver, and Bob Zemeckis as well.
Zemeckis, right. Yeah. So Silver was the only guy, one of those guys that I saw.
Wow.
And he literally, it was like a flyby, like literally like the Queen in the car driving by and waving.
Right.
But, you know, again, I mean, there was no drama. It was like all good. You know, I haven't seen, it's interesting, I haven't seen Chris or run into Chris since then. I don't know if he's back doing makeup or what he's doing, special effects. I don't know, I haven't heard his name or seen him. Same with Pamela, and only because I ran into Aubrey on Visioneers have I, you know, run into him, which is, you know, it's odd. Usually, you know, I tend to run into people more often, But I think, I mean, I was just looking at Pamela recently, and I think she's sort of more writing now than performing.
Yeah. Some of the other people we've interviewed have said that it was a collaborative experience on set, and that it was somewhat, to use one of the interviewees, guerrilla filmmaking. Was that kind of the case at this point in the series?
I mean, you know, I look back on that. I remember that sort of experience. And the irony is, that's how all television is pretty much done nowadays.
Right.
So, but I remember at the time, you know, I had just finished doing a TV show with Paul Sorvino at Disney, on the Disney lot in Burbank, on film, you know, massive craft service table, massive trailers, you know, all the shit, you know, you'd maybe see like on a Transformers movie now, but you would never see on a TV show again unless it's some huge hit.
Right.
You know, like if you're in Criminal Minds and it's, you know, Thomas Gibson's trailer. Well, okay, I get it. It's been going for 10 years and he's making a lot of money. But, you know, usually, particularly cable shows, any kind of cable show, it's much more like Tales of the Crypt was. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guess you can call it guerrilla filmmaking, but it in my memory, it's sort of, I look at how the show that I'm on right now, Switch to Birth, is done, and the speed at which we operate. It's not guerrilla filmmaking. It's incredibly competent and very fast-paced, but it's like at a third of the cost of what that same hour would have cost in 1990.
Gotcha.
I remember people being incredibly competent. Everybody, makeup, wardrobe. I haven't seen the episode, but I remember seeing it like 10 or 12 or something years ago and thinking, fuck, it looked pretty good. The zombie shit looked good. This quicksand looked good. It was all, because there wasn't any CGI. It was all done on film.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it was certainly a different level of quality than, if you were doing a television show in 1990, you're doing like Moonlighting, or you're doing, I don't know, Rockford, I don't know, whatever. But, it was different because it was a cable contract, which paid everybody less. And I think we shot that. I really, you'd have to look in the IMDb Pro or something, but I think we shot that hour in like 5 days, which was a very fast schedule, and is even faster than most TV shows now. It might have been 6 days, but I remember it being really fast. Not a lot of takes.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of the kind of the quicksand scene, you mentioned the quicksand scene a couple times.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What was that like filming that scene?
Oh, it was horrible. It was freezing. The water was ostensibly heated, not in my experience. And, it never felt dangerous, but it felt like really uncomfortable. And, God bless the wardrobe people with their thin little terry cloth towels that were trying to keep me warm.
Right.
It was, and there was no, we're out there with folding chairs, maybe, and someone maybe had one of those propane space heaters. I don't even know maybe not. But it was freezing. It was uncomfortable. And we were also there's also one thing where she's chasing me through the jungle, and that was the last shot of the show. And we literally shot that thing until 8 a.m, and they were like, we can fake night till about 7:45, and then we're cooked. So that we shot right up until the daylight wouldn't let us cheat anymore. But it was, that was run and gun. That was very skeleton crew. I think Zemeckis probably got a favor and got us on the Universal lot and got us back in the ranch. And so we were able to do that probably, for nothing.
Right.
Because he probably had
He's Robert Zemeckis, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
He probably had one of those, he probably had half the, because he wasn't Back to the Future, that's Universal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. He had the pull there. So.
Yeah.
But, never felt unsafe, never felt, and she, I remember her being game with all that stuff. She was cool with all that. Mm-hmm. Pamela,
Was she under that makeup towards the end where it's just the skeleton? Was that her or was that someone else?
She did it all.
Wow.
Because she didn't want anybody else doing that, which I respected.
Right.
I remember are you sure? No one's going to see you.
Yeah.
They can fake it if you want. She goes, no, I don't want them doing something weird that I wouldn't agree with. I said, okay, I respect that. I get that. In my memory, that's how I remember it. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Gotcha. So when you were on set, did it feel like to you that this was going to continue to be a kind of a success in Hollywood? Did you get the feel that this was kind of building ahead?
It's funny. No, it felt like a one-off. Like these guys are like just doing this for party favors and kicks.
Right.
And it wasn't until years later when I realized that it had become this kind of thing. And people would, not so much now because it's so long ago, but like literally up to 10 years ago, people would go, hey man, I know you. Where you from? Oh my God, you were in Tales from the Crypt. I'm like, whoa. You're pulling that one out. But yeah, it was kind of a thing, and it's sort of a fun thing to have been a part of.
Because there are a lot of people that were a part of it.
A lot of people, and it's sort of like they did that Outer Limits show up in Vancouver. I did that one of those. And those are fun. It's fun because you look at all the people that did one. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and because 2 episodes before yours was an episode directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
there you go.
Yeah, that in my mind is kind of when you look at that, you're like, geez, second season of this show, they're already getting Schwarzenegger to direct it. That to me is just like compared to everything I've heard about working on, and even with what you're saying about the show being like kind of just seemed like it was not like a big deal. So
yeah, I think it was sort of had a cool cachet with a certain group in Hollywood, and it was kind of like, hey, look what they're letting us do for this little shitty, cable station, HBO. Everyone figured that would last about 3 years and then go away.
Oh boy, how they were wrong. Jeez.
Oh boy, how they were wrong. Yeah. So, So it was sort of. It's only, in retrospect, only kind of a positive. And a positive yet exhausting experience because of the pace we were working at. And I don't think we had stand-ins, so they would be like, "Hey, do you mind standing there for a second while we do the lighting?" It was sort of a lot of that.
They're trying to do everything super fast.
Well, had to just because the amount of time we had to do it, and with the makeup stuff, you had to. Yeah. It took a lot of time to apply and all that stuff, and then make sure that all the spooky tooth stuff looked good. It takes time, but Chris had his team there, so they were really good at it.
So, had you watched the rest of the show after your episode, or was it kind of a non-issue?
Honestly, non-issue. I don't even think I had HBO at the time. I think HBO was what you had if you wanted to watch boxing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to watch boxing.
Right.
And so I didn't even have cable, man. I had one of those fancy aerials.
Gotcha.
And so it wasn't until 2-3 years later that I even got cable television. And then when you have cable, then you would offer you the package, and then I started buying that stuff.
Right.
To watch old movies. So even if I'd wanted to watch it, I couldn't have because I didn't have HBO.
Gotcha. No, I gotcha. I mean, HBO was kind of a
luxury. It was a sports thing.
Oh, it was also like a luxury item in the 90s.
Yeah, it was a luxury item. I mean, it was you had to have cable, and it was basically, like you go to someone's house and watch boxing on HBO.
Yeah. Could you tell me what it was? I mean, what it's like working on TV now versus then in kind of in more detail, obviously, because you're on a show that's been on TV for quite a while, switched at birth. What is it like, say, working on that show versus what it was like working on Tales from the Crypt?
Well, anytime, I mean, the difference about Tales from the Crypt and the uniqueness about Tales from the Crypt then and would be today is that your entire cast, your director, everybody is new every week. Most TV shows don't have that.
Right.
Most TV shows, you have your regular cast, then you have your guest stars, but there are some regular people. The only thing that was regular on Tales from the Crypt was the crew.
Right.
But the entire creative side was completely different every week.
Gotcha.
I mean, at least the above the line people. So that doesn't really answer your question, but it specifically it speaks to Tales from the Crypt in terms of how that show was very different. In all of television history, there aren't many shows that do that.
Right.
Now, in terms of from 1990 when that show was shot to today, I would say that it was like a sort of early pioneer of cut rate television production. But still, I mean, Tales was shot on film. I can't tell you when the last time I shot an episode of anything on film. It's all shot digital now.
Right.
Everything. I mean, Friday Night Lights was shot on 16 millimeter film. That's the last thing I shot on film.
Wow.
That's the last show that I shot on film.
Jeez.
And it was 16 mil, because that's the only way they could get to shoot film was by using 16.
Right.
So that's different. I would say there's probably, if I was, what's funny is that what I was paid to be a guest star on Tales from the Crypt is what people get paid to be a guest star on television today.
Right.
And that was a cheap show back then. Mm-hmm. The economics have gone it's like deflationary. Like television economics have gone in reverse. Mm-hmm. I was paid 3 times what I would get paid to guest star on a TV show 25 years ago.
Wow.
Because 25 years ago, someone who has a television show would go, I want D.W. Moffett to play that bad guy.
Yeah.
In our season opener. And the network would go, okay. And then they'd call my agent, and then they would haggle over a price. Now, the showrunner would call the network and say, I want D.W. Moffett to play the bad guy in my pilot. And they would go, okay. And then the showrunner, the casting people would call my agent and say, okay, we're offering this part to DW at top of show, which is basically SAG minimum for a weekly player. Mm-hmm. The minimum, SAG after minimum, which I think for a television show is for, roughly $6,000, $7,000. And if I say, no, I want to haggle, they go, thank you very much, we're moving on. Huh. And they go to the second person on the list. It is not even a phone call. It is not even a conversation.
Right.
It is next.
Right.
And they have 10 names on the list. And they know the networks approved those 10 names, and one of those 10 people will do it because they want to work. Mm-hmm. And that's what's different today from the way TV used to be made. I was hunted down on vacation by the guy that created that show Midnight Caller. Mm-hmm. He'd seen me in a play in Chicago, and he wanted me to be the bad guy on a 2-hour season opener of Midnight Caller. And he hunted me down in Colorado and, basically paid me exactly what I would have been paid per hour if I was the lead of the show.
Gotcha.
Because my agent knew that he wanted me, and we haggled it.
Right.
That would not happen today. That would happen today if you were Justin Timberlake or Lady Gaga or Vin Diesel, special guest appearance.
Right.
He might, but that's the difference. And I think with Tales from the Crypt, it was such a new thing. There was no real, we didn't spend a lot of time trying to get a lot of money out of them because there was no money to be gotten. It was sort of more like, I want to be part of this cool new thing.
Yeah.
That we didn't even know if it was going to be cool, but everyone said it was going to be cool, so we said, let's be part of this thing.
All right. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming you didn't know anything about there was going to be the Crypt Keeper or anything either. That's kind of everything I've heard from everyone is they didn't even know that was going to be a thing.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Right.
That was all.
Somewhere else in some back
I think when
room.
I saw, I had seen, wasn't there a movie?
3 movies.
Like in the theater?
Yeah, 3. 2 movies in the theater. One was released more recently, direct to DVD.
Yeah, but I remember seeing a movie like in '85 or something.
I think there was a movie called Tales from the Crypt, but I don't think it had anything to do with what the show ended up becoming.
No, but this one was like an anthology, like a Twilight Zone anthology. It had really good actors in it. I remember seeing it in New York, like on a hot summer day. It was like '85 or '86. Mm-hmm. So I kind of knew about the idea of the kind of the genre anthology thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Do you think that anthology series, do you think that's something that's kind of missing from Hollywood in this day and age? That could be useful?
Well, in a way, like True Detective is kind of doing that. In a way.
Right.
Where they're totally switching casts out. Not every episode, but every 6 or 8 episodes.
Right.
I think it's really interesting to sort of have a concept and then have completely different casts. It's a lot of herding cats though when you get that many new creative people under one roof and you got such a compact production schedule. So in a way, it's kind of amazing they pulled it off.
Right. I just always looked at Tales from the Crypt, and this is something we've talked about on our podcast, that it's a way for younger actors and newer directors in Hollywood to kind of cut their teeth, as it were, and kind of... And I think that's kind of missing to some extent. It's kind of like a proving ground for younger actors and directors.
Right.
So...
I mean, I think the proving ground for young directors now is like, you go and direct shows on MTV or, it used to be ABC Family, but now my directors are pretty good directors.
Right.
I'm trying to direct now, and it's just like, who will even take a meeting with me? Or like, it's hard to get going because there are so many established directors who can't get work.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly anything that you're asked to cut your teeth on is nowhere near as ambitious as the Tales of the Crypt stuff was.
Right. So, speaking of ABC Family and your success with that, is there anything you're currently working on you'd like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think that I think Switch to Birth is a remarkable show in terms of I think the cast is really good and the quality of the storytelling is really good just from an entertainment standpoint, but I also think that the fact that they address so many sort of issues of what it means to be different in our society. We've touched extensively on what it means to be deaf or hard of hearing in our show, and now we're in this new season 4B, we're about to embark on another sort of one of these sort of hot topic kind of issues of otherness in our society, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the response is. And not a lot of shows give a shit about taking on stuff beyond just pure entertainment value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I respect our show for that, and I'm very happy to be a part of it.
And it's been going for 4 seasons, right?
Yeah, we just finished broadcasting season 4A, and we're about to start. We've actually started shooting season 4B, and season 4B. Each of these little mini seasons are 10 episodes, so the 10 episodes of season 4B will launch in the summer, and I'm not sure when.
Gotcha. Well, I've seen a couple episodes of the show here and there. It's not for my target audience, obviously.
No.
But it's in its 4th season, which means it's successful.
They might get a kick out of it. They might get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
They might get a kick out of it.
But it is in its 4th season, which means it is successful in this day and age. Anything past 1 season is a success, is what it seems like. So
it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Just look at the way things happen every fall and spring, where shows just die on the vine.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And do you enjoy working on TV more than on films?
No, I really enjoy working on film because I really enjoy seeing, I enjoy seeing that kind of storytelling where it's sort of compact and it's in this sort of 2-hour event. Unfortunately, most of the kinds of movies that I like or want to write or want to direct or, most of those kinds of stories have migrated to cable television.
Right.
So because of the migration of that type of storytelling, I tend to watch more cable TV, AMC, BBC America, HBO, Showtime, whatever. I tend to watch more of that than I'll watch, whatever new Marvel movie has come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go see Furious with my 12-year-old son, but I would never go see that in the theater myself.
Right. Gotcha.
I think that every once in a while a great movie comes along, but I'm ashamed to say if it's a great movie, I probably will wait till award season and they'll send me a DVD and I'll watch it at home.
On the next episode of Chronicles from the Crypt, we're going to be talking about episodes 5 and 6 of season 2, Three's a Crowd and the Thing from the Grave. When we're not having you as a guest on Chronicles from the Crypt, Mike White, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me over at the Projection Booth Podcast, which is projectionboothpodcast.com, or they can find me on the Kolchak Tapes with you, Mr. Stashu, over at kolchaktapes.com, or they can find all three of us over at Dreams for Sale, which is a podcast all about Twilight Zone 1985, which is, ironically enough, at twilightzone85.com. So, yeah, you're keeping me way busy around here.
I hear that. We're all busy. We're all busy down here. Where can people find you, Father Malone, when you're not on Chronicles from the Crypt?
I have a YouTube channel called Ot5 Films, and I have a show called You've Never Seen. You can check that out. It's a look back at movies that have kind of fallen by the wayside or need a little bit of love they never actually received. You can also hear me, as Mike said, with these two fellas on Dreams for Sale, The Twilight Zone 85.
And when I'm not on Chronicles from the Crypt, you can listen to me over on the Culturecast, where I talk about movies twice a week, both old and new. That's over at culturecast.com. Big thanks, as always, to Mike White for sitting down and joining us, and to our Crypt Keeper, the Crypt Keeper himself, John Kassir, for the intro to the podcast. And we'll see you on the next episode, boils and ghouls.